Great. Let's keep the conversation going here and bring in our first guest for the hour. We've got Greg Valliere. He's AGF Investments Chief U.S. Policy Strategist. Greg, I'm not going to have you make a prediction on how many rounds we're going to go here, but let's talk about the policy implications. How are you thinking about that as we now go on day 3 of this vote?
Well, they're not good on two levels. In the long term, as we get into the summer, we're going to be talking about a debt crisis, hitting the debt ceiling, maybe even a funding crisis for the U.S. For U.S. debt. In the short run, what happens if California's rain continues and the floods require emergency aid? What happens if there's a foreign policy crisis that needs emergency aid? The House is totally frozen. They have the ability to do nothing right now. And this is really quite unprecedented.
And obviously, we're getting a lot of different people weighing in, even Lauren Boebert going against her favorite president, Donald Trump, saying, look, he should instead be backing McCarthy. He doesn't have enough votes. But when you do have so many hardliners in the party, are we going to see this then reflected in the policies as well?
And I might add, Rachelle, I think that as people desperately scramble for a fallback, the two that we're hearing the most are, number one, to take away most of Kevin McCarthy's power should he be elected, making it very easy to remove him. And secondly, is there a fallback in Steve Scalise? I think Scalise is a possibility. If McCarthy doesn't make any progress today, I think there's going to have to be a migration to someone like Scalise, who's pretty well liked among most all Republicans.
Is he somebody that can muster 218 votes, though?
Yeah, who knows? That's impossible. Maybe Rachelle has a better answer than me, but I mean, who knows if you can get that many votes? I think Scalise could come a little bit closer, but these 5 hard no's are going to be very, very difficult to overcome.
At what point do you think it's going to be a case where McCarthy just isn't going to be the one? I mean, even when you look at Scalise, some people are saying, look, he's too close in terms of being too similar to McCarthy. Yeah. So perhaps even he won't get that vote.
I think today is going to be pretty crucial. If it's the same 19 or 20 no's, I think you're going to have to start thinking about moving on. I guess the key would be whether moderate House Republicans, and there are some, would have anything to do with the concessions that were made overnight by McCarthy. My sense is that if McCarthy makes some progress with the hardliners, he's going to lose support among the moderates. So net, it's still hard to see how McCarthy pulls this out.
There are those lawmakers on the other side of the aisle, Greg, Democratic lawmakers sort of letting the show play out for now. They don't obviously have the majority in the House, which is why we're talking about a Republican House Speaker. But is there any leverage to be gained for Democrats from what's been playing out on the other side?
Well, the Democrats obviously have had a field day with this. You showed some of the texts that were pretty funny, but it's not funny. And I think as this drags on, I think more and more people in Washington will become exasperated with the inability of the Republicans to get their act together. I mean, it does help the Democrats politically. Most voters, perhaps in a year and a half, will have forgotten about it. But at the same time, if we have any kind of crisis, and I would put a debt default crisis high on that list, that would just exacerbate all of the anxiety that voters may eventually have.
And Greg, do you think there is going to be a tipping point where they're like, look, we just have to rally together, get a speaker in place and just move on so we can actually get to the business of actually creating policy?
Eventually, yes, but it's sort of like eventually we'll get a negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. There was some news on that this morning, but eventually has a long time frame, and I think that it's very unlikely we're going to get any kind of deal that would satisfy Kevin McCarthy. At some point, he's going to have to say, I gave it a good fight, but we're going to have to move on for the sake of the country. But I guess he's not there yet. But I think it's not that far away. I would guess it's probably a few days away, and they'll probably really carefully look at not just Scalise, but other members who could get that magical vote total.
We'll be keeping an eye on that when that kicks off again in about an hour. Thank you for joining us, Greg Valliere, AGF Investments Chief U.S. Policy Strategist. Thank you so much.